It's well time we discussed pageantry and ageism. As most of you know, the Miss Universe organization has already lifted their age eligibility restrictions. So why are we talking about it now? Recently, Jocelyn Cubales, who is 69 years old, has announced that she will be competing at Miss Quezon City, which is a preliminary competition for Miss Universe Philippines. She'll be competing against 14 other contestants. Jocelyn is a fashion designer, and according to the Pageant Smart Local PH Instagram account, she has held titles of Mrs. Philippines Germany, Mrs. Asia International Global, and Mrs. Ecotourism. So she is no stranger to pageantry, but I want to talk about it in this episode because I have read so many opposing comments online. I don't necessarily lean one way or the other when it comes to this argument because I can really see the reasoning and have understanding for both sides of views pertaining to age eligibility for Miss Universe. But I do want to share a little bit with you about my personal experience with ageism in pageantry and some other people's experiences, so maybe you can see different sides of this. In 2015, I competed in a local Miss USA pageant. I only had 2 weeks to prep, so I had very little and low expectations for my performance in the pageant. I thought I would do it so that I could just get more stage practice. Well, to my surprise, I won, and after winning, my local director sat me down and wanted to share the judges' comments with me so that I can apply some constructive criticism to my preparation for the state pageant. I'll never forget what this one judge said about me for my interview competition, and instead of sharing things that were helpful and could give me constructive criticism so I could continue to improve, they instead commented on my age. I was 25 at the time, and the age division was capped at 27 at the time. And they said that I was too old, and they wanted to know what more could I possibly gain from being in this competition. And then for the onstage question competition, the judges were able to give a maximum of 20 points for that. And I had all consistent scores from the other judges, and that one judge gave me a 1 out of 20. That has to be a record for me, a personal record, and not the best one, for the worst score I've ever received. And frankly, I don't even think I've ever scored a contestant that hard and gave them a 1 out of 20, because I still credit the fact that it takes courage to stand up there on that stage, and I do award some points for that because it's not easy. This judge was just not happy to see me in a top 5 and wanted to do whatever they could to make sure that I would not get that crown. I also want to share a story of Olivia Jordan because when she was Miss USA in 2015 as well, actually, she was criticized for her age, and she made this post on her social media page. She said, "For all those that tell me I'm too old to be Miss Universe or even too old to hold my current title as Miss USA, please clarify what you mean by that. Do you mean I'm too old to advocate for important global issues like child sex trafficking or HIV and AIDS? To lobby in DC for ovarian cancer? To hold my own on CNN and turn a conversation from negativity towards pageantry into advocacy for the Alzheimer's Association? Or is it that I'm too old to visit schools with the message to work hard and be nice to others? Am I too old to inspire others to be confident in their own skin, or too old to inspire everyone to follow their wildest dreams no matter how many times they fail along the way? Or is it that your view of beauty is so limited that it somehow expires before the ripe age of 27? Or even worse, is your ageism an undertone of your outdated sexism, and you feel that my career aspirations have a time limit so I can focus on other things like getting married and pregnant? If you're going to judge me for my age, at least attempt to give me a valid argument why you have decided that my dreams should have an expiration date." Lots to unpack, and I'm not even going to attempt in this episode because I have some other important things that I'd like to share. The organization has changed and grown exponentially since its founding. If we look at the first 10 years of the organization, the average age of a Miss Universe winner was 21.1. Now, if we look at the average age in the past 10 years, I would say there's 2 notable things. First, that age has risen to 24.2. But most notably, in 2022, Arbany Gabriel was crowned, and she is historically the oldest crowned Miss Universe at 28. Now I want to share another experience that I've had in pageantry when I was sitting behind the judges table. I have judged Ms. Pageants, and typically Ms. Pageants, they can start at any range, but some of them start at 18, some might start at 29, 30, 24, 25. Now, regardless of the age minimum, typically this means that there is no cap for those divisions. So you could be 102 and still enter a Ms. Age division if you wanted to. Also in Miss Age divisions, you're typically allowed to be married or divorced and have kids, so that qualifies a lot more women. So I've judged contestants within the same division who were in college, freshman year of college, all the way to empty nesters who had grandchildren and who were just living and retired with their husband, literally living out the golden years of their life. These are two very different scenarios and women that are in very different stages in their life. I found myself very challenged, and not only me, when I talked to other judges on panels that I've been on, they also found it so challenging because they didn't quite know how to score a contestant and her life accomplishments, which varied so widely considering the age gap. Like, how do I compare someone who is fresh out of high school to another contestant who's lived the majority of their lives and had so many other life experiences? It ends up kind of being unfair to one or the other, depending on, I guess, where your personal biases lie and what you feel like makes a qualified title holder. The other thing to really consider that makes it difficult is, even though I found that there were many older contestants in the Ms. division that excelled in the interview competition, when it came to the onstage competitions, and there were multiple onstage competitions that required them to do modeling routines, evening gown routines, all sorts of things. When it came to that, I had to score in a way, and many other judges, in a way that we felt was fair, dependent on what the routines looked like. By the way, I also coach Ms. and Mrs. contestants. There's so much to consider at different stages in our life. For example, typically my Ms. or my Mrs. contestants, they're requesting different types of wardrobe. Why? Because our bodies look so different. So they're taking very different things into consideration that you might not be thinking about when you're 18, 19, 20. They're dressing a different way because they want to dress for the body that they currently have that will make them feel confident, as everybody should. The other request I get from a lot of my older contestants is that they feel like they can't walk in those stiletto high heels anymore. It's really difficult for them. So they'll request a block heel from me, a lower heel option, an option with a platform, just something that's going to make them feel more comfortable, feel more stable and secure, because as our bodies age, we tend to lose a lot of our balance. So there are different things that my more mature contestants are looking for. And when it comes to on-stage competitions, when I was judging those for such a wide range of contestants, the younger contestants had a serious advantage there. That made it so difficult because I felt that, in all honesty, I was not able to give an older contestant a top score because I did truly think that they could have had a much better performance. That was a result of them standing toe to toe with a much younger contestant who has a very different physical body. I can understand why people would say, well, this is a very unfair comparison. And I feel like, especially for on-stage competitions, that's true. Unless you ask your judging panel to score by an entirely different set of qualifications that do not or no longer include a contestant's ability to execute a routine. At that point, then you really have to think about, well, what is this new set of qualifications that we're going to ask our judges to score by so that it's fair for everyone? I'm not sure what those qualifications would be. I would love to hear in the comments what you think about that. Being on the other side of that judging table, it made me feel quite bad for contestants way up at that top of that age division, contestants that were in their 50s, 60s, and 70s that were competing against contestants in their early 20s. I feel like they both have very different advantages. The other advantage, though, is that a lot of our older contestants, they are very confident at that point in their life. So if you can allow them to get into a top 5, typically they'll really impress you with their onstage answers in a unique way, in a way that you might not expect, just because that confidence comes from such a genuine and authentic place. So I completely understand why people aren't a fan of completely eliminating that. And it's the same reason why we have age divisions for younger contestants. Let's look at a youth pageant, for example, one of my favorites, National American Miss. If you look at how they break down their age divisions, it's about every 3 years. So 4 to 6, 7 to 9, 10 to 12, 13 to 15, 16 to 18. And then once we hit 18, things kind of become a little bit more fair, so that age division opens up until 24. We do that because we're all in such different areas of life in so many ways. Physically, developmentally, intellectually, we're at different places with our career, our family life, so much. And a lot of younger divisions, they're really breaking up those age divisions so that it is fair, so that there is not such a wide disparity between each of the contestants and what they've accomplished. So I fully understand that. But then we look at it on the flip side, and I look at women that are in their 50s and up, influencers that I follow on social media, women that I love their content, I love their zest for life, and it's constantly inspiring me every day. And these women that I follow, I feel like they add value to my life every day. So what's to say that other women who choose to participate in pageantry later in life are not going to be able to bring that same value to other people? It really poses such an interesting question. Then if we think about things in context, specifically of the Miss Universe organization, a pageant system which historically and typically is known for some of the most beautiful women in the entire universe, I feel like by adding in older contestants, you're gonna force everyone to really think about the way they view beauty, the way that they see beauty and aging. Because typically when we think beauty, like the first thing that comes to mind is usually youth. And there is an element of beauty, I would say, in most pageants, but especially in the Miss Universe organization. When we bring in older contestants, audiences, fans, and judges, they're really gonna be confronted with their ideas of aging and beauty and how those two are connected and intertwined, and if they can coexist. Because in some people's opinion, they don't. In others, they do. So I think this is a really interesting topic, and I think it's something kind of fun to think about, to debate about. It's gonna be really cool to see how this all plays out in the future of the organization. But I would really love to know what your thoughts are on this, and I would love to know if this episode at all kind of changed your perspective on anything, or I guess solidified your perspective on anything. I'd love to hear about that in the comments. But thank you so much for tuning in, and of course I will be providing Miss Universe coverage this year, so stay tuned as I start recapping those national pageants. But thank you so much for tuning in, and if you're gonna leave any comments, please be respectful and kind to one another. Let's create a positive and uplifting community.